Hey guys, welcome back to The Mind of Brandon. Today we're going to be talking about yet another interpretation of free will. So, you might be wondering, well, what about the other interpretations? Well, I did talk about that in a video I did last week called The Free Will Argument. And it's entirely possible you won't understand everything in today's video unless you first watched that one. So I will have it linked down below in the description box. That being said, I received a couple comments on there that I want to go over with you guys. So the first comment says,
Free will means you can have a will that is free and not controlled by an outside source or preset by an outside operator. I may not be able to go outside and float up into the air, but I can have the desire/will to do so. I may not be able to prevent my eventual physical death, but I can have the desire/will to live forever. Free will is about what one wants or does not want. It's about one's individual attitudes toward whatever situation where different attitudes can be had. So in a religious context, we can believe that an action is a sin, but that does not mean we shall be able to avoid that sin. The will to be sinless may be present, but the ability to be sinless is not. But one still has the freedom to develop/have their own personal will on the matter.
Alright, I have to admit, of the various interpretations that I have seen of free will, that seems like the best one. Makes the most sense with those specific words, free will. Right? But let's look at his other comment.
Yes, God knows what actions people will do, and he has known it from the beginning of the creation of the universe. God's foreknowledge of what we will think and do does not then mean that our thoughts and actions are predetermined. It only means our actions are pre-known. God, being the creator of the universe, is not bound to universe time or universe space. Part of this universe is its own time. God, who created the universe, exists in his own time, that is, outside our time. And thus he can see all our times from the beginning to the end from his vantage point outside our time. Thus, we can and do have free will within our own time, and we express it and run with it. But God, being outside our time, already knows how we are going to express and run even before we start to express and run with our free will. As an analogy, imagine if you had the ability to travel in an invisible bubble into the future. You get projected into the future, and you're floating in that bubble above a future suburbia 2024, and you look down and see a woman walking down the street wearing a blue dress. She stops at a parked car, gets out her key, and opens it and gets in and drives off. Now, just because you know that this woman chose to wear a blue dress in the future, and that she decided to get into a car and drive on that future day, does not mean that she did not have the freedom to wear a red dress that day, or decide that she would catch a bus that day instead of driving the car. No, simply foreknowing what someone would do does not mean that person's will to do what they did has been taken away from them.
Right, of course. We're operating with the assumption that free will is real. Knowing what someone's going to do or not do does not take that away from them, which is why I would never suggest something like that. I, of course, have not suggested something like that. Actually, the scenario that you're using here is like completely different from what we're talking about. You know, a mortal human being traveling to the future and seeing a woman doing something, that's completely different from the scenario where humanity is given free will by an all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful creator God. Right? Completely different situation. So, I'm just going to kind of reiterate my point in a way that hopefully sinks in better. Look, if humanity was created by an all-powerful God, a God that's capable of doing anything, there's nothing he can't do, okay, then that means there's like an infinite amount of possible humanities that he could have created. Okay, we're keeping in mind, you know, God exists within his own time, as you mentioned, he exists within his own time, okay? And so once upon a time, in God time, we don't exist, right? Once upon a time, in God time, we don't exist. He has to imagine all the different ways that he could create us and then come up with his favorite way, the way he wants to go with. Okay? Whatever way we are, that's the way he chose. Okay? So, since there's an infinite amount of different kinds of humanity he could have chosen, that means that, he could have made humanity so that, when we stub our toe, it doesn't hurt. When someone blows up, it's not a painful, tragic, horrible experience. No, it's actually kind of funny. All my pieces were flying around all over the place. I've never been in so many different places at once before, traveling at such a high velocity. It was so much fun. And then you just put yourself back together again, right? Or you could have a sport where if you get your head knocked off and people kick it around, they have to kick it into a goal or something, and there's no pain involved as your head's getting kicked around all over the place. You're just going, wee! This is so much fun! God, I'm having such a fucking blast, you guys! Right? God could have created humanity like that, but he didn't. No, he chose this. Out of infinite possible humanities, he chose this. So if he's an all-knowing God, then he knows what's going to happen if he wires humanity's brains to work in whatever way. Okay, and so in this possible humanity, he might wire the brain that way. Another possible humanity, he wires the brains a different way. There's all these. There's an infinite possibility of different ways that he could wire the human brain. Okay? He chose this. He chose this. Knowing what we were going to think, what we're going to desire, what we're going to do about it, right? So he had an infinite amount of choices of humanity to create, knowing what was going to happen. And so he's basically, by choosing this humanity, he chose all the desires that we have that come with it. Okay? All the desires we have come with this humanity that God has chosen. He could have chosen a different one where our desires were different. Okay? But he chose to wire us in this particular way that we have, certain desires. We, react to stimulus in certain ways. We desire certain things because of certain circumstances and environments. And that's how he wired us. And, it could have been different circumstances. It could have been different wiring. It could have been different desires. But he chose this. He chose. Not us, him. The all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful God chose. Not us. We didn't choose it. He chose. He chose this. If he's an all-knowing, all-loving, all-powerful God, then he chose to go with the wiring that we have. To go with the desires that we have. He chose for that to happen. He said, that's what I want. That's the one I want. I don't want that one or that one or that one or that one. I want that one. How is that free will? That is a God-given will right there. He knew, if I wire humanity in this way, here is what they are going to do. I could do it this other way and they'll do other things, but I want it to be this way. So, your actions, your desires are the ones that he selected for you. Or at least that sounds sound to me. Let me know what you guys think. Comment section down below. Have fun. Go ahead and give this video a thumbs up. Share it with other people. Make sure you subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And I will see you all in the next one. Have a good one, guys, and peace.